Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Bitcoin and Beyond. I'm Melanie Carstens, and I'm your host. And today we've got a good friend of mine, Gary Raja. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you. Welcome. And thank you for having me. I like the intro. I didn't know this is kind of like a different, I don't know, maybe I didn't see it, but I thought it was going to be like the regular deorganized one. This one's a little bit like, chilly. It's got a vibe, you know?
Yeah, it's so funny that last week, when I in this interview, the same, like it's a comment that basically comes up.
Oh, yeah.
That, we like the intro. It's so funny.
It's such a little thing, but it adds, it sets the pace. It's sort of, it's nice.
Yeah. Okay. Well, welcome. It's good to have you here. We've had a lot of conversations, but I've got to think about it. It's funny when you know somebody really well, and then you've got to go back and you kind of like, okay, I've got to pretend that I don't know you so that I can ask you questions that I know the answers to. But so that's why I thought I'm going to ask you some different things. So I'm going to kick this off by, right, so in crypto, in Bitcoin, most of the builders are focused on DeFi. Why did you choose NFTs?
That's a good question. Yeah. And again, thank you for having me. The opportunity is really appreciated. And so I don't, I never take anything like this for granted. And
awesome.
And everything and I appreciate everything you're doing because you're really helping a lot of people, folks like me and artists and all that. I haven't seen all the ones, but I've seen a few, and your interviews always go fairly deep and they're interesting. So I mean, NFTs.
Gary, sorry to interrupt you, but that's very kind. I do appreciate it.
Sure.
It's nerve-wracking sometimes, and it's kind of a new thing for me, but I absolutely love it. I love doing this. And I think, and I was saying just before we started as well, and as I introed the show, I think it was top of mind because I've got a lot of guests coming up that I've never met before. And I'm actually thinking of not looking into who they are and almost just kind of playing out this meeting them and allowing my meeting of them, the people watching also get to experience that meeting of them, anyway.
Just real quick, and hopefully we don't go on tangents the whole thing, but that's just how we roll. But have you ever heard of the Smart List podcast?
No.
It's like Jason Bateman. I don't know if you know him.
Yes, I do know it. Is it a bunch of
like the three guys?
Yeah. My husband listens to it. I've never listened to it, but I do know of it.
I do, like when I'm fascinated with the guests or whatever. And they just had like Millie Bobby Brown, the girl from Stranger Things, like with the short hair. Like she's super cool.
Yeah,
reminds me of like a young Natalie Portman or something, who's awesome too. But anyway, the reason I bring them up, they always, I don't really know exactly how it works, but they read. So at the beginning, they're like, she's got an Oscar, she's got this, she's 20 years old, but they don't know, none of them who know who it is. And so they say it as if like they're trying to guess who it is. And then the person just appears. It doesn't matter. It could be like the president. It doesn't matter who it is. And
that is so cool.
Yeah. Like just kind of to add a little bit of I don't know how you would do it like with one person, but it's kind of, you could sort of figure out how to do something similar,
Yeah, I like that. Even doing it now is just like, and I'm totally unprepared. When I first started doing spaces, I was so terrified that I used to sit on my desk and then I would have these pieces of papers out in front of me, and it would say like, just breathe. Yeah. Don't talk too much. Listen, because I am a bit of a natterer. Anyway, it's so funny. And I literally would just sit there thinking, I'm either going to have a panic attack, I'm going to stutter. And then, so to be able to be at this point now where it's just like, I'm going to come in, I'm going to just say whatever comes into my head. Anyway, we digress as we normally do.
Yeah, let me.
This is the problem when you know somebody very well. You forget you're on the show.
Exactly. So back to the question. NFTs. Yeah, I mean, I think it's sort of interesting because I think originally we were sort of led to NFTs just by the nature of being able to tokenize something. Just the quality of what they are made a lot of sense, specifically like when we were working on Hey Layer, and all the iterations and sort of the ideas that we had. One of them was like the storage that we created, which is sort of like a Google Drive with files on it, and we were converting those files to NFTs. It was a combination of things, but I do understand your question, because like if you look at Stacks right now and you kind of just generally want to bring in investors, or if you want to bring in people, what's the quickest way? It is going to be probably SBTC. I remember like 7-8 months ago or so, I asked the question, I'm like, can you even do DeFi without Stacks? And like, I actually didn't know the answer. Like that wasn't like a weird rhetorical gotcha question. I wasn't sure. And everyone was like, no, you really can't. So that like makes you realize, okay, well, it seems like the go-to thing in Stacks should be DeFi. I did spend time in finance. I had like this weird past life where I was on Wall Street and stuff like that.
That's why I also asked the question, because I've never asked you, and I know that about your background. So I think to myself, what's interesting to me is you've got this other life, this, like you say, in finance, and then you move into this new money, Bitcoin, which is finance, right? And yet you move into art.
Yeah. I think, well, you may be one of the only people that kind of knows, and I mentioned maybe to a few other people, sort of my upbringing is a little bit different. Like I said, my dad was, you have that right now. I had it when I was little, where my dad was kind of like a local celebrity. People would know him, but he was just an amazing composer, pianist. A lot of the classical music training is kind of what he had. He became director of a local theater back in the Soviet Union, not really Russia. That like whole thing confuses me now too. But yeah, so it was like, I do find myself, like if I had to choose between creative and analytical or whatever, I would go for creative. Sometimes life takes you through different paths, and it's like, I come to the US, I don't know English, it's like, what do I do? I don't have friends, and then it's like, you listen to your parents, what job should I have? You should be this or this or this. So that's kind of how I ended up in finance. Not that it necessarily like drew me in, but my experience in it, stock market, sales, I just sort of can't go back, So I think just like everything, where everything happens for a reason in some way. But my heart, I love music. I grew up around music. My kids now grow up around music, because of me. And so I think, what feels way more natural is to be sort of in the creative space. And I do that even with engineering, especially now, like vibe coding and stuff like that. Like you can actually be a lot freer in expressing yourself, which I'm so excited. Like I think artists are going to become engineers, and like it's sort of like happening already.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. So I feel more at home, like with the artists. But at the same time,
I can sense that with you, because when you did tell me that your background was finance, I was surprised, because you feel, and it's so, it's interesting that it comes, I read somewhere, or I heard somewhere about this kind of a divorced couple, and the dad was saying, it was kind of, I don't know whether it was like a parable or not a parable, but you know what I mean. The dad was saying that he would see his son every week on a Saturday, and he would tell him all these things, to bring him up to be a good man, but he never did those things. And the moral of the story is you become what is around you every day. That's how you actually learn. Discipline, for example, comes from the word disciple, to follow. It's got nothing to do with being overbearing and, yelling at your kids. So I think that is what kind of was, that's why it was instilled in you. It's because you come from this incredibly creative dad,
I think so. Yeah. And it's just like listening to what you just said. I think about, my household, like I let my kids kind of explore, we've got, there's certain boundaries you don't cross. Right. And then that's just sort of like my household, at least, but I do want them to like think for themselves, like do. But it is interesting when sometimes you go to a public place and your kids sort of turn that off. because, you know, we are respectful. Like, you know, you don't go, let's say, to a restaurant, or you don't go to someone's house and you don't jump on the table. But at the same time, like, I don't know if I've ever told my kid, like, don't jump on a table. You know, actually, now that I think about it, I probably have maybe once. But I'm realizing that a lot of things are learned almost like circumstantially.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like there's just things that kids pick up. And it's an amazing thing, you know. So
I always think of the thing of, like, if you play tennis with a shit tennis player, like, your tennis is not so great, you know, and it's kind of like that same thing. You know, if you surround yourself, even in business, your game is going to be as good as who you surround yourself with, you know, so it kind of continues your whole life. You know.
You're right. I mean, it's like, why does Roger Federer or whatever, why do they have coaches still? Right. I mean, there's nobody that, somebody needs to be sort of like that third person camera, you know?
Yeah. Talking about good, well-known or whatever tennis players.
Yeah.
Can you believe that when I started, and I didn't know this because I was just like a child. I mean, and in those days, back in those days, 120 years ago, I don't know, I think kids were a lot less switched on, you know, to really what was going on around them. And my mom actually hired like a Wimbledon trained tennis coach. He had like a dude win Wimbledon, but a South African guy called Kevin Curran. And he was my tennis coach.
Amazing.
Let me tell you, amazing. I did my first tennis, and my mom spent all this money teaching me to play tennis with these dreams that she's going to sit courtside in Wimbledon one day. Do my first little tennis match at the local club down the road in front of like 12 people. Amazing. Well, I couldn't even hit the ball. I just stood there like, So yeah, my tennis career didn't go very well. But anyway, it's funny you spoke about parenting, because that's another thing I wanted to ask you. What are your 3 best parenting tips?
Wow.
Because I know that's what I'm asking, because I know you're a dad of 3, and you've got a young one in the house.
Yeah. I think I'm almost like going to get weirdly emotional about this. I don't know why, because I just started thinking about, because you touched on it, and it matters to me. I think like that one-on-one time, like that real one-on-one time, is super important. Like I'm literally getting emotional. I don't know why. I am an emotional person, by the way. It's really annoying being a guy that's emotional, because I got to like figure out how to turn.
Are you going to cry? Am I going to get Gary?
No, but you know, I feel like I look like I smoke weed now or something, because I'm getting a little bit. Yeah, it's you know, when you're on your phone next to your kids, that's not being with your kids. I'm guilty all the time, by the way. Like nothing I say, like what you said, I'm no saint. You know, we're all human. Yeah. And like I feel like what's really interesting is my newest one. He's about to be 8 months. Like, he will get cranky if you don't, like, he wants to be picked up, and he wants you to pick him up and look at him. And play. And my wife is like, why is he crying? Like, let's just give him a bottle, or let's just put him down, like put on a TV. He literally just wants to be with us, because that time is so sacred. He can't get it. And I don't blame him. Like, between my other kids, you know, they come home homework, or like one of them, you know, like my boy does Taekwondo, you know, he's a green belt already, like a high green belt. My other girl, like, she does dancing and some other stuff, whatever. So it's like, you got to give that attention. So I would just say, very simply, like, be with them, like the real be, you know. I would just say that goes a long way.
You said you, before, when we were talking with the show, you said you've moved around from where you were to where you played video games, or you play video games with your kids.
Yeah, well, we have this one room. It's like it's sort of like, this place is interesting, because where there's like you walk in, and it's sort of one of those like brownstone looking, like kind of like a long type of place. So it's not, our place isn't like wide. It's more like a little narrow and long. So, you know, you walk in, you've got a little entry, you've got like the kitchen, the living room, dining, but in the back, there's another office kind of space, and that's where I'm at. But you know, we've only been here a couple of years, which I guess is quite a bit, but I never really thought about how things should look here. And now that I have the baby, we're trying to organize. So I just reshuffled some stuff. So I used to just be on the other side of this room. It's not that big of a room. You know how when you're on video, things kind of look different than they actually seem different than they appear.
I'm excited about my new environment as well.
Yeah.
Because I play video games with my son, just what you were saying, being present. Yeah. So my son and I the other day, because interesting what you were saying, how with creatives becoming or sort of a creative being able to become creative in dual ways, being able to become on the software side and on the or they'll sort of start getting involved with coding things, right? So my son likes making the front end of the game, the animation in the front, whatever, not the scripting behind the scenes. So I said to him, or the coding, or so I said to him, look, well, I know a little bit about AI because I've obviously been listening to Michael, Blockface, and whatever. So I said to him, look, I know a little bit about it. So I got him the paid ChatGPT, and then we went on. There's one that's good with coding. Anyway, in 2 days, on Saturday and Sunday, we sat together the whole 2 days. I was teaching him how to talk to ChatGPT, because that's obviously, there's a skill in that. Certain things I learned from Rocky as well, from the syndicate, where you never don't ask a question. So you say, I want you to make this. We designed first of all the whole concept of the game, and at the end of everything, I asked him, is that enough? Taught him, is that enough information? Do you need anything more? Whatever. Anyway, and the whole day and what was amazing for me is that he was able to have, because a friend of his was supposed to learn the coding so that he could just do that. So they had a partnership, but this dude just was lost corp and didn't do it. So I said to him, now this is like having an employee. Anyway, so it was just interesting to me about all that, but I don't know why I'm now telling you.
I think what one key thing I want to kind of
gaming. Sorry, I want to come back to gaming. So carry on, yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, I think the most valuable thing that you're teaching your son, and what I found with prompting, is it's sort of how to hover around the question and how to think about it. It's like thinking critically, right? It's really, I don't necessarily think that two people, one person that doesn't know, I think they'll get there. But I think the person that understands how to think critically, ask questions in different ways, almost like what I love to do generally, the way I learn is I'll break something apart, and then try to put it back together, because I want to understand how each component, what it does. And that type of thinking, which is very similar, I think, to kind of the way you're training your son, which is here are all the pieces. Here's where we want to be. Yeah. How could this be done? Or what's missing? Or what do you think you can help with? Or what should I be thinking about? These types of open-ended questions. Not everybody has the ability to do it that way. I'm not saying I'm amazing. I don't know. But I'm saying I'm sure there's people better than I am. But I just think that type of thinking, that type of critical thinking is extremely valuable. I think it's going to be and I feel like if you're creative, you're really able to sort of channel that sort of 4D, right? that 4D chess style of thinking.
Little things he also didn't understand, because he is only 13. But and I know your son. No, it's not yours.
Yeah, the boy. Yeah, he's a little younger, but he's 7.
Yeah. But so just showing him because he didn't understand. He just wants to jump in, and then he starts and he just goes because the whole game, it's a Roblox game, and I can't remember what they're called, but anyway, some vegetables jump off a plate and they run across the sky. The tongue is kind of rolled out the mouth, flat. So they jump off the plate, they run along the veggies, and you've basically it's a tower defense game, that's right. And then you've got to throw tomato sauce, mustard, cutlery at the vegetables to stop them from getting to the mouth. Okay, that's the whole game. And then you earn veggie bucks and blah, 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 fish paste. So we had so much fun doing it. But so I've got 2 questions now. I wanted to ask you just about your kids and engaging with them, because I think that's so important to, and that's leading on from the parenting thing. It's so important to involve your kids in this, not be afraid of it. You were going, sitting next to your kid, not online. There was a woman who was over here who was saying that in the UK, they're starting to look at an additional grade in school, teaching children to look up and communicate eye to eye because of their parents looking down, and also just giving them an iPad from day one. So scary.
Yeah, there's a lot there. Yeah, there's just so much to unpack.
But anyway, so I just think it's important to kind of, have those. And I think from somebody like you, there's so much work to be done there just to teach people. I saw some dude on Twitter the other day sort of saying, hates AI. So I gave him a big lecture in my own style. But anyway, how is AI going to change what you do?
I think it's, well,
How are they going to complement each other? Maybe how are they going to change? I want to hear about AI and software engineering.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about it really short term, only because my mind right away goes like 3 years from now, 4 years, and I don't even know at the pace where we've never got. Like I've never seen this pace before, and so it feels very exponential. And I in that sense, like talking about kids, like I don't even know what my kids' jobs will be. Like I really don't. And my thing is like I'm gonna approach their schooling from that blank slate, only because if I assume something today, like I'm sort of feel like I'm shooting myself in the foot.
Yeah.
Like social media wasn't around when I went to elementary school, so just with that alone, and so that perspective of just being aware of what's happening is like that is just on its own, I think, extremely important. But with I feel like we are coming to this idea of singularity, which is kind of scary, but I think we might have talked about this maybe in a space or maybe mentioned it once, but essentially all information and everything about the internet and everything's possible is just coming to us faster, cheaper. So, like when it came from building a SaaS product used to be something that only a few people could do, just building. And then building it well, even less so.
Right.
And then marketing that, even less so, and then making it sort of to X revenue, whatever. So like a lot of that no longer exists, meaning that anyone, like I was listening, so I'm kind of old with Howard Stern is around, and he was, he's a they call him like the king of media, even though it's probably peace love now, but they call him the king of all media.
Peace love.
And you, of course.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, you're going up the ranks.
I'm the queen. Sorry.
You're the queen of,
yes, you can take the king.
You're like yes, Daenerys of So the good kitty of media.
Yeah.
So top kitty. So so he was on today. I listen to him sometimes just because I don't know, I feel like our sense of humor is similar. And he was saying how he's like, I go to dinner, he went through the ringer just because he doesn't look the part, he doesn't act like, he was just not the person that you would see as being sort of like on top of media kind of thing, running these like radio shows. He's a very nerdy looking dude. And he did it by becoming a shock jock. That was a shtick. So like radio, he'd get thrown out and, but he's like, now I have a dinner and like this, 15-year-old, like, oh, I have a podcast. I have this many listeners. Like, you don't have to, like, his whole life has been about trying to make it and try to make a name for himself. And then and now like, there's no value to that anymore. Anyone and everyone can start their own show, can get their own audience. So this idea of singularity, like 5 years ago, I really couldn't picture it. I really picture it. So it's almost like, now if I want to build something or I want to build an app or a game, like we're all going to be able to build our own games. We're all going to be able, and like, I kind of feel like we're all kind of going to be playing them by ourselves and maybe with a few other people. Like the idea of building something that everybody's going to use, I don't know anymore.
That's decentralization though, isn't it?
Yes, it really is.
100 true friends, 100 true, well, you're never going to have 100 true friends.
Yeah, like they talked about, I think 5 years ago, this idea of micro influencers came about. Sorry, you look like you had a thought, but it's sort of like you could do damage with 100 followers right? Like back in the day, like that meant nothing, or even 1,000 followers. Like back in the day, like if you had 1 million, you were something. If you had like 1,000, you were nothing. But today, you know, you can be a micro influencer. Like you could build these micro apps. You can build these like little things, and just the time it takes from idea to delivery is short. And so, you know, this, like, I actually think like Back to the Future got a lot right. You know, he's walking, the one where they go to the future, the second one, which is like, I love that one. You know, the ads that come to you, right, that like are relevant to just you. And so that makes sense to me. Like, it makes sense that if I'm standing at a bus stop, which who knows if we're ever going to stand at a bus stop, like 10, 15, 20, whatever, but like those ads should know who I am, should come to me, should like solve my specific need, almost kind of like retargeting when your phone's hearing you. I just think that all of that is going to get closer and closer.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we kind of talked about, I think one time in a space, we laughed about the fact that I feel like AI and like all these, they're just going to tell us like, oh, you're going to marry this person, best match, right?
I
Like,
was listening to it. Okay. I was listening to this thing the other day. I think it's Homo Deus, the book, you know, that trilogy that I'm constantly talking about. I'm on Nexus now.
Novel, something.
Yeah. So I think it was them. They were saying that it's going to get to a point where the algorithm will know you so well, you will be plugged in. It will know you from birth. So this is, you've got to put your mind kind of in the future. And it's so, like you were saying, social media wasn't around. We don't know the jobs our kids are going to have. It's going to know you from birth. It's going to have all your, you're going to have obviously your own assistant, right? Your own, very, like you were saying, you know, now there's Siri, and Siri's just like, you're going to have a personalized one. They're going to know you from birth. They're going to have all your medical records. They're going to see every single email that you've ever wrote. So, for example, it will pick up in your area if 6 people contact the doctor and say they've got a headache and a cough. It will immediately know that there's a flu situation in your area. It will alert the doctors. It will alert whatever local media that you have, right? That your, like you say, your ads that come on. Everybody in your office potentially could be. Anyway, they were saying, it's so funny, that it will even know like how good you are in bed, because it will know the size of your dick. It will know like how long you do it for and everything, because it's right next to you. It's on your watch, whatever. Anyway, so they go like, he's talking about it and he's going, so you know how guys will say like, you know, was that guy better than me? I mean, God. Anyway, this thing will know, okay, and it will be able to tell the girl, okay, this is why data privacy, and we can talk about that maybe just now, is so important. Because, Mel, just acknowledge that size. Size does not matter, okay? It is all about yourself, let me tell you, and what's in your head. A woman...
The way you use it, as they say.
Yeah, I even think, yeah, maybe. What's it, the motion of the ocean or something? Listen, it is about the woman and what is her... It's not about you guys, okay? Get over it. It's about what the woman feels, what's in her head, how she feels about her body, and how she feels about you. Anyway, not that I would like, you know what I'm saying? Probably walk away. Well,
can it be about both of us? I mean, you know, men and women both have to be.
Yeah. Let's be kind. It actually is. But I'm saying there's a, you know, for each of you.
Yeah, from that perspective.
More about yourself. It's about the guy and how he feels about himself, and it's about the girl, and then you sort of come together, literally, hopefully.
Yeah, I hope we don't segue again. But one thing I like read not too long ago, which blew my mind. This was a Reddit thing, because I'm a nerd. I go on Reddit. It was just all about how like women dress for themselves. Like when you go out, like I used to go out bars, clubs, whatever. You know, I was like, girls dress like this to get attention. But like what was revealed to me, and maybe this is not 100% true, but it was revealed that like a lot of girls dress for other girls, in the sense that like they compare themselves. They want to see like what their bodies look like.
My lights. You know, something's gone wrong with my lights. Sorry, guys.
That's why I moved, by the way. Because I was getting that. Do you have a window? Do you have a window open or something, like light coming through?
No, it's the light behind me, but the sun might be setting behind me. I don't know. Or angels have just, maybe the storm. Yeah, there is a storm around here. It might be.
Oh, really?
Anyway, excuse what's going on with my. Just
I think
pretend I'm in
with this combo. I don't think people, they're too.
I don't care. I could be invisible right now. Talking about penises, everybody pay attention.
You went straight to the D. Like I was waiting for the P word, but the D, that's fine. This is the new.
I jump around.
Yeah,
anyway, yes, you were saying.
I don't know what I was saying. I was just saying that
you heard penis, and that was the end of what
I blacked out for a bit. I think it was.
Anyway, let me tell you the end of my AI story. You can think about.
Go ahead.
So, this flickering is really irritating me. But anyway, so and it says that. So, say a girl goes, okay, I like Paul and I like John. The AI, you were able to talk about this with your AI, and the AI will say, Paul is very good looking. He gets away with a lot of things based on how he looks. This is how well it will know you. Relationships based on looks, the success rate is 14%.
Yeah, makes sense.
So you may have a short-term enjoyment with him because he's good looking, but John is very smart. He has the same interests in you, or compatible interests, whatever, because opposites are supposed to attract. And it will basically guide you to choosing your partner. It will know you before, it will know when you're going to get sick. It will know everything about you. And let's talk about data privacy. Because, I mean, imagine I could access this information about you. Imagine other people could access all this information and be trading it. Yeah.
It's only because I've seen the monumental shift we've already experienced, like over the past 2 years, that I can imagine. I mean, we've talked about this idea of living forever. I mean, it's going to start with some of the really techie folks, right, who want to preserve and figure out how to preserve their voice forever, and then figure out how to leave it to their kids. But I think there's a natural progression of all this, that we will essentially live forever, whether our bodies will be here or not, which as I say it sounds so freaking crazy. But like, right, I have a shelf right over here behind me, because my grandpa was a World War II veteran, fought for Russia, got shot twice, lived, and my whole life, like he had a hole here, and he had a wound in his leg, and he survived. Like the maggots ate his wounds. Like the stories are nuts, because he was basically like pretending to be dead in the forest.
Oh my God.
Like if I can sort of bottle that, right, and have that in something that I can actually ask, like what is like what? So, the other thing about my family is we're sort of from all over the place. We're not the only ones, right? But I'm one of those people that has a hard time of like, I really want to understand my family tree, but because we were all over the place, because of lost records and all these things, I can't like get past a certain point. Like a lot of that is just going to change, and that just changes so much about our identity. I think as the thing is like, based on what I'm hearing, even from what you're saying, as technology helps lift us up, a big part of it is also going to help bring us down, because of how we will be able to just see sort of and bring decentralization into the game. We will see things a lot clearer with transparency, maybe things we don't want to see, things we don't want to know, even about ourselves, Well,
that's the thing. I mean, first of all, that is a great point. We're going to have to face a lot of who we are if you have this AI person that knows you, because nobody really knows anything, because this person knows a little bit about you because you behave differently around people. So you yourself change. So you even don't really know yourself. This thing's going to know you so well. So now imagine like your innermost thoughts, every email that you've ever written. imagine this technology is owned by like, the medical industry that owns all your, because it's all got to come together to make this algorithm thing, whatever it is, work.
Yeah.
So it terrifies me, the idea. I mean, I've also read somewhere that it's going to get to a point where your wallet, your government wallet, your central bank currency wallet, you will be able to, you'll have an area that you're allowed to move around in. And if you leave that area, your money won't work. You won't be able to buy anything beyond. So there'll be no pass. That's how they will control your movement. It's like it's going to be weird that we walk it around with paper documents that could be counterfeited or whatever. They're going to say, okay, you can eat meat once a week. You can eat 100 grams of meat. There's no one in your area that will sell you. Your card will just stop. This was your food rations. That's it. So it makes me think, obviously listening to Electra about the network state, so interesting. Nice. Listening to Lorne about Nillian, that first blind computer.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking like, I want to just go live in a network state and have Bitcoin and.
Well, it's interesting like this.
Private.
Yeah. And I think something like Nillian just makes a ton of sense, only because like I'm going to put my libertarian hat on, because I do have that sort of libertarian perspective as a part of my overall thinking. It's not the only thing that I believe in, but it's one of the things, just the freedom. Like if you're born, at some point I stopped believing in boundaries, frankly, like territorial bound. And I know, that's a hard one because they're like, well, nations, how do you become a nation? But like, I'm just like no one, I don't like the idea that some people are born in a place where they have to be treated or suffer or whatever. And then someone else is born in a place where their life's completely like, I don't even think that's fair.
And you can't leave the shit place. Your country is at war. You've got nothing to do with that war. You're just happy cruising around,
And you don't know any better, which is the crazy. That's where the war machine and all the propaganda. If you don't know better, then you don't like it's almost like you ever heard like the fish like swimming around in the ocean. They see the other fish like, how's the water? Yeah. Like they don't really know that there is one. It's sort of like a play on joke because they don't really know they're in the water, right? They're just there, so they don't know.
It's also boiling a frog slowly. Yeah, where they don't know they're getting boiled.
Yeah. And so the reason I kind of brought that up is like the libertarian side in me is like, if you truly create everything in transparency, like you said, it can have adverse effects, right? Because you don't necessarily want like the government, like if I'm walking, I have an electric collar and I go the wrong place, I'm getting like zapped or something, or I open, I'm looking the wrong, whatever it is that they, based on my information, don't want me to be doing, that to me is a limitation on my liberty. Yeah. Which, as a libertarian, like I'm huge on liberty, right?
Imagine bringing your children up into that world.
So, I mean, like I'd love to have an intellectual conversation about decentralization, and this could be like hours long. So it's like not that we have to have it here, but there are a lot of negative loops to decentralization. Because if like imagine like the way I explain, by the way, blockchain, like if I'm sitting around my family, is imagine a Google spreadsheet that's public that we all can look at any time. Because that way it's like all our info, like my profile photo, like my information is all there. My bank account is all there, blah, blah. Now we can encrypt it. We can do all these, but those are extra steps and we're not sure where this is all going. Right. Yeah. But for a country like China, for example, that loves to monitor its citizens, like they're, everyone's getting now their own merit-based credit score. Right. Like but what if that credit score has to, like, what if I don't smile enough? And now I'm getting, because maybe I'm like being bad in society, for whatever, like culturally not helpful. If I'm just having a bad day, like, am I going to get a bad mark? So a lot of that is sort of like, where do the liberties intersect with decentralization? And they can go, they can take a day, like I'm wording this wrong, but as amazing as it can get, it could also sort of play the opposite way. And I think this is like a needle we're going to thread, and maybe not us, maybe our kids, but it's certainly like something that's been on my mind, and maybe network state, in the sense that like what network you can choose which network state to belong to, as long as that freedom exists and you can participate with your digital, like I get that, and I hope that that's maybe where this all plays out. I don't know.
Yeah, I want to be in a society where everybody thinks not the same as me, because I don't want to be in a society where everybody reads the same books as I do, because that will be like, horrible.
Yeah.
But where we all have, complementary, and listening to Electra talk about the network state. And listen, if you are listening and you're interested, you can head over to just Google the network state. I think it might be networkstate.org or something like that. But Balaji is the writer. You can go on there, you can read it, you can listen to it, you can find out all about what the network state is. It is phenomenal, just for you to think beyond the borders of your, where you are. But I love the idea, the way she describes it as, they have these talks, they have speakers come in because she was the first cohort. I mean, it's such a privilege. And then they all, during the day, they all just sit around. Imagine it like the old Roman Empire. They all just sit around, and like you get like people who are interested in astrophysics sitting there just talking, and kids are running around. And so you've got like 13-year-old kids, because you can come as a family. They had 150 people. You can go to the website, you can put your name forward, and then you wait to see if you get an invitation. Where they're going to have it remains secret.
So the idea they want to create a network state kind of thing, is that kind of where this is all going?
So that's where it's all going. And then what they'll do is they will, they're looking at distressed environments, distressed properties that are, so they can have small communities. Because I read somewhere else as well, I think it's if people are over like 100 or 150 people, they in like management gets difficult, they start like not, I don't know, things start going pear-shaped. But so it's a small community, and they're looking at finding this sort of distressed property. So Electra was talking about it and saying even Stacks could be a network state, because we've already established. So it's cloud first, land second. So you first come together mentally, like pen pals, basically, the old idea of, or whatever it is. So we all communicate online like this. We create currency. We create governance. We first all agree on that without even being in the same room. And only then, once we have all agreed and it's functioning properly, and only once it's really functioning properly, and again, because everything is open, you can see it all, you can see if there's like a scumbag in your midst, then you start looking at property and purchasing property. And the nice thing is you get almost like a network state passport, so you can move around the network states. You're free. You're free to move. I'm like that. My whole life, I have wanted freedom. When I go to yoga and they say set an intention, I say freedom, Yeah. Because I constantly feel like I'm not free. We all think we are, but you basically wake up to do your job and then you go to bed again,
And I think some of us
you end it off with like very little.
Yeah, I think some of us, and maybe more, folks maybe that are into things like crypto, because in some way we're creating, like you said, like we're creating our own network state. I was thinking about the SIP process as you were talking. I just think that that's amazing. But that wasn't like, because it creates that rule book for us, right? We're almost building out our constitution within Stacks. Yeah. And that, we live, and then someone could say I don't like it, and then we discuss it and whatever, which is such a cool process. And
we all vote. If we want things to change, we vote. And if you don't like it, fork off, literally.
Yeah. Exactly. You're 100% right. And like what I wanted to say something.
Sorry.
That some of us, right, maybe the ones that are more spiritually bound or called to something or creative, we don't stick to the plan. Like I'm certainly one of those people. Like I don't do well in a 9-to-5 for a reason, and not that I can't. But I also have just realized as a self-reflection that I feel bounded. I don't want to go to your meetings. I don't want to, like, that structure. it doesn't work for my heart. Like,
And
like
tell
I
you
feel
that I
like
can
my
only have a
limbs
certain amount of days a year on holiday. I mean, I'm sorry. Who the fuck are you?
exactly.
I'm
And
here
now,
helping your company. No, I'm unemployable. I am
now
100% unemployable.
what's interesting is a lot of people will be like, because I've heard it to me, even my wife sometimes like, who the fuck are you to decide not to do the 9 to 5, like, who do you think you are? But it's like, I'll speak for myself. Sometimes I choose struggle, like literally choose it with the gain of liberty or freedom. You know what I'm saying? So like I remove those boundaries, but I make it harder for myself. Because if somebody's like, here's $1 million, but you have to follow my rules, I'd be like, no, I'm just gonna be annoying, do it myself, not get $1 million, and then somebody like that is really good at following those rules. Like I noticed my son is like, he's if you give him a task, like 1, 2, 3, like he likes that, his brain just doesn't work that way. So I feel like the other thing is we can't be upset or mad at the people that don't get it, or at least me. Like I never want to speak for others, but I also know like where I can shine is if I have that freedom, and I will fight. I fight for it, like I almost like will hurt myself in that way where it's like I won't accept certain things if I am if I'm allowed. So in that sense, like we're in that constant battle, I think, and it sounds like maybe you are too.
Oh,
yeah.
I mean, I understand you, and my husband was just quickly. He's a performer, a singer, and there's a huge global label. I mean, it's called Live Nation, right? And they own like NASCAR, Broadway, all the O2s in the UK. It's like huge, and
Here too. Yeah, in the US too, huge.
Yeah. So, well, that's where they started. So the Michaels that started it, they are from the UK, and we know one of the guys. He was Arno's agent, my husband, and he was one of the guys that was involved with starting Live Nation. So, they offered my husband a record deal because in those days when Spotify first started. Or Napster and all that sort of thing. The labels obviously were losing money, and so they started offering artists 360-degree contracts, which meant they would take percentage from all their earnings, including their live earnings, and have nothing to do with it. It was a terrible contract, but what they would do is they would offer you like a shit ton of money up front, but they would control your every move. Okay, so my husband, who's like used to like running wild in this crazy band, now we get there and they say, okay, they want to offer us a deal. And it's like enough money for us to retire. Okay. And he just has to go and sing and we don't have to really care. Our bills are paid forever. And when you're a musician, like you're literally working from hand to mouth, even if you're very successful, right? So we get this deal. It's like we're on the verge of signing it. We've got the contract. We are living, in the UK. And we sit down. He's like on the charts. Now he starts charting. He's like artist of the month in a couple of European countries. He's on Radio 2, BBC, all the radios there. So now they phone us and they tell us this, right? We're sitting in our apartment in the UK in our pajamas. And we say like, so we don't drink anymore, but we drank then. So we look at each other. We're like, should we have a tequila? Because now this is what he's been working for his whole life, right? So we sit there, we're like in our pajamas, okay, watching some British shit TV because their TV's terrible. And so we have the tequila and like we're like, okay, let's go back to watching. So now we say like we should actually go out and celebrate, but London, it's so far to get to anybody or anywhere, and it's like such a ball ache. So we're like, okay. So we sit there, we're just going to like carry on watching TV. So we wake up the next morning. Now he's been going to shows. I have to take a photograph of him, of what he's wearing, send it to the label. We have to have written out everything he's going to say during the show, send it to them. Okay, that's how the control is. Okay, wow. They have got you by your sack and they are squeezing every minute. Okay, yeah. So we wake up the next morning. We both look at each other. We're like, do we really want this? Yeah. We turned that down and we came back to this country we had like a couple of $100,000, and I'm talking rand, so like probably $5 left in our bank account. We took a map, we laid it out, because in those days, 100 years ago again, we laid it, and I said to him, you put your finger down on 3 places and I'll put mine on, and we're just going to blow every last cent we've got, and we'll go back and start all over in South Africa. And that's what we did. We stayed in fancy hotels. We just blew all of our money, and we came back, we had nothing, for freedom, so that we didn't have to report. So yeah, you talk about somebody who's going to fight for freedom.
I know there are enough people that will say that was a dumb move, but for me, like
we now go.
I'm sure they're the majority too. So like, you kind of sit there and you're like, I'm the stupid one. But for me, that's heroic. Like what you did is heroic. Like I think we talked about this like once, or like, who do you sort of like, envy, or who do you not like look up to? Like that is heroism to me, because it says like, I know who I am. It basically means, and I know just from knowing you a little bit, I know you're super confident in who you are. And it just says, yeah, I know who I am, and other people don't get to tell me who I am. Like,
and we let me tell you something. We live by the beach in a beautiful house. I've got a little mini farm that I'm busy growing. I have enough. And I think that's what I fear about like someone like Michael Saylor. There will never be enough for him. How much fucking Bitcoin do you need? Why? Why not just be satisfied with enough? Historically, there would be, just say, 10 billionaires, 15 millionaires, and 572 million poor people. Well, poor, but not millionaires. There's enough if we're going forward, when you start splitting that billions down into, for us to, and having enough and being free is like the best feeling in the world. I get to wake up, like this morning, I climbed up a mountain, I hiked up a mountain. Was I telling you a piece before the show? I was telling Peace. Hiked up a mountain, came down, swam in the ocean, lay in the bath for like half an hour, meditating with a candle, like namaste.
Yeah.
Nobody's telling me what to do.
Exactly right. There's so much to be said about that alone. I think humanity has a long way to go. We're still in that sort of. I went to this private like class. It was a while back ago, but this woman was talking about social capital. She essentially just like her whole spiel is about like, it's all about who your network is essentially your net worth. That's sort of her thing. And why did I bring her up? Because I lost the train specifically of why. Probably come back to me.
It's okay. I've got early onset dementia. I'm convinced of it.
I have ADD too. Whatever that is. But yeah.
Yes, I zone out. My son and I both, because I'm autistic. So, and he's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Huh?
I said I'm pretty sure I am too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I've been diagnosed when I was young, because I was looked down. That's why I couldn't. I mean, what my poor mother, with all that money she spent on the tennis thing, but I was like that. Also modeling. I came like last in the whole of the modeling club because I just walked shame. She was trying to make me. But anyway, so yeah, my son and I. He'll be talking to me, and I'll be looking at him, and he's telling me something like really, important for a kid. Like, he's emotionally freaking out because he's 13. And then I'll be like, sorry, what were you saying? Totally just zone out. So we have this thing now where we just say to each other, sorry, I zoned out. Well, what are you talking about? So I have this in the show as well. Yeah. It's happened to me a couple of times, and I'm the freaking host. And I'll be like, And then I think to myself, so actually I've got a little book here in front of me now where I like while I'm looking and talking, I'm like making notes, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, just stay focused.
Try not to forget. Yeah. Well, yeah, no, it's like I have that too. I have like ADD issues. I interrupt a lot, and it's like trying to think, because you want to be useful, but it's also like, Anyway,
we've got so much to teach. We've got downloads. I am listening. Okay. I read a lot. I read prolifically. Every day. I get anxiety that I'm not going to be able to read about everything, from astropolitics, astrogeography, right down to like ancient apocalypse with things happening under the ground and everything in between. But if I can, so take my recommendations is what I'm saying. The telepathy tapes. If you are like autistic or into that kind of thing, so it's really about non-verbal autistics, and about how they communicate with through I can't say that word.
You know, I think I listened to, this is a podcast, right?
Wow.
I listened to the first episode. It was crazy. Yeah.
It's so good. And the one kid, like on one of the episodes, the mother is like, every doctor, he's non-verbal, he's just like, there's nothing. And he's never said a word in his life. And the doctors have all said, listen, this guy needs to go into a home. He's like finished. And she's like sitting praying for a miracle the one day. And he walks in and he stands, he's just little. And he stands at her feet and he says, Mommy, I love you. And it's the only words he's ever spoken, right? He's never, that was it. And she said, regardless of whether she imagined it or she didn't, it gave her such hope. So she started with that, you know how they prompt, which they talk about in the show, where they teach them to like use a thing prompting and then it speaks, some of them are thing. Mm-hmm. And the first things he types, gives me gooseflesh, is I'm in here.
Crazy.
I know. So it's very interesting. So Michael and me, because I do the morning show with Peace and GPSC and Blockface. And so we've started this thing, the autistic laser beam. So they make me think of something, okay? And then Michael or any one of them, they can all like try and receive what I'm sending them. I think I'm going to start introducing that on my interviews. I'm going to start like planting a sentence in your head, and then I'm just going to wait for you to like spontaneously say it, like a weird thing.
You know, I think one of the things I sort of like talk to this maybe can go back to one of your first questions is I just say, if you practice something, you will get better at it, no matter what it is, right? Like anything you can practice, because it's sort of like we learn from life that it's sort of like a muscle, you know? And so there may be something to that being a muscle that we just ignore because we think it's a fallacy. But to some people whose brain can't be wired the normal way, right? It's almost like blind people could hear better, right?
Yeah.
Or deaf people could see, like those types of things. It's like your brain sort of tunes to a new frequency, right? I mean, I'm getting goosebumps now too, but
it's crazy. I mean, we could sit for, this could be like a 12-hour podcast, but before we, because I think we're already over time. So, but we haven't even touched on what you actually do when it comes to this is Bitcoin and beyond. So I lean more towards the beyond part than the Bitcoin part.
Bitcoin maybe one.
To me, I want to show the people that work in this industry that, you know, and sort of normalize these people that, you know, and I don't know. So that's kind of, for me, what is important, is to just have these conversations about, so we can become friends as well in this, because we were all just profile pictures and, you know, weird names. I mean, mine was Good Kitty and I was like some crash punk for 4 years, and look at me now. So let's talk about quickly about what you do at Stacks. You've just recently built Gated, which is an artist first platform. I worked with you to create a music player. We released an album together called When Walls Break. And then you worked with Reese Swanepoel on a collection was called Machines.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Tell me, I think if anybody wants to find out a little bit, because we don't have much time to kind of go deep into Gated, but tell me where you are with Gated. It's gated.io if you want to go check it out.
Gated.so.
Gated.so.
So.
Okay, well, there we go. As long as I know what's going on, I should have written that probably in my notebook.
Okay.
Gated.so. There we go. It's on screen. Thank you. So go check it out. Tell me where you are with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, just talk about what you want to talk about when it comes to Gated.
Yeah, no worries, and I'll try to be brief. I think I look at Gated as an evolving project. We are an alpha, so there are things that are working, and there are things that may not be working 100%. But I see it as sort of just a reflection of where I am in the space. The people I've met and the things that I hear that people are looking to do. And that's kind of how I'm going to continue. I'm not putting as much pressure on myself as I did in the past, which I think is the right thing to do, at least for me right now, given kind of where I'm at. And that actually gives me some flexibility. But the idea with Gated, just on a high level, it's the ability to express yourself in a Web3 format. You get a page, you can customize it in the way that you want. You could sell NFTs that you want. And so I kind of think of it as like a Gumroad meets Shopify kind of thing, right? So where you're selling digital content, NFTs, generally speaking. So you're not going to be selling like a t-shirt physically, but you are going to be selling all the intellectual property that you create online. And, we're going to be, I think I really enjoyed your conversation with Nick because I look up to Nick. I think he's brilliant, especially when it comes to like marketing. And, I vibe with him on this one principle that I'm here for the long game. Like, this is not something that like, it's not Bitcoin. I don't just turn on and then one day I'm like, it's not going to work. Maybe like, I don't think that way. I think that. And so that also has changed my positioning on how I spend my time on it, where, I understand that if I'm going to survive and have this as a long game, I need to take my time. I need to work with people. And I need to sort of have to do it. So there's a huge uphill climb. I'm excited about it because there's so much that we could still do from here. But that's really what Gated is. And I would say, join early, hang out. And as we kind of build out this platform for people to express themselves freely, to give them the freedom, the liberty that they want to have online, I think it'll become a really nice place. So that's where we're at. You can create a page today.
So anybody can create a page. You can just go
There's nothing
on.
flashy, so they're not gonna sort of get led right now in terms of like do this first, do this second. It's a little bit grungy at the moment, but if you go to gated.so, connect your Stacks wallet, you'll be taken to a place where you can create a new page. You can create that page, and then you can start adding elements to the page. I'm in the middle of an update. Like there was an update where I didn't even announce it because it was sort of like half built, but it was being able to now add like text, so paragraphs and actual like headers, and so you can sell. Not only can you put NFTs on there, but now you can actually write alongside them. So it's sort of becoming like a real content platform along with selling NFTs. But that isn't fully fleshed out, so I haven't really announced it. So I would just say join us, come early. If you have good ideas, let me know, because I'm always looking to partner with the right people, like you said, with yourself, with Reese, people that have been around and want to kind of see where this thing can go, because I want to grow with you folks. So that's where I'm at, and it allows me to express myself and allows me to work with others and build something that I think would be useful.
Yeah, and I think the nice thing, just to sort of reiterate what you were saying. The nice thing about sort of onboarding now is that they have direct access to you, because you kind of building for creators at the moment, creating the templates, so to speak, for what is to come.
Yeah.
So that's why, Reese had a great idea. We worked together to create this music thing, which, if you've got an album, for example, and you've got music, that you would like to sell as NFTs, then reach out to Gary, because it's a great, place or way to do it. So, yeah. And I think, I love the sort of comment you made about the long game. I mean, that is why I think I love Stack so much, is because you haven't got people just sort of jumping on like now. There's like this full on like race to make Bitcoin layer twos. And it's basically just like Ethereum on Bitcoin,
I mean, it's amazing. I'm sorry. Go ahead. This is back to what we were saying. I was just saying, I like Munib, not too long ago, has said, hey, like we're, the thing isn't really fully built yet. And like, we're all like people that have been here for 4, 5, 6 years. Like, what do you mean it's not fully built yet? I mean, that is the mindset though. I mean, he shows up today and he's like, when we have this fully built out, when, everything is running the way, like it is still not there. And I think a lot of people, especially with today's attention, yes, everyone wants the meme coin on ETH. I'm not like that's my brother's world, by the way. So me and him always, I'm like, Bitcoin stacks, just like stay the straight and narrow path, and he's like, no, I got to dabble at, I can't go to sleep. Like, he's on that wild ride. And that's like, if that's his thing, that's his thing.
Yeah.
That's
not financial advice.
Exactly. Not financial for anyone, but that's not my thing. And so I like, it's cool to be with like-minded people. We can show up every day and do what we got to do to move this along. And sometimes we need to take a break. Like I had, we'll end this, but like I had 3 things go wrong around the same time, about 3 weeks ago, like was like getting sick and my kid got sick, and like, then we had a vacation, like, and like, I have to take the time off. Like I cannot be on, every day up. That's just like, for me, that doesn't necessarily work, but that's fine because this is the long game.
Yeah, exactly. And that really clicked for me recently. I think we all got a bit caught up in the sort of Nakamoto upgrade. And there was this hype that built up for so long, it had kind of almost been a year that we were kind of like, it's going to happen. And it's like, how much foreplay can a person take before they like blow their load, and kind of I'm just sticking in theme of the show. I don't know how it ended up going into the bedroom, but anyway, you never know what's going to happen on Bitcoin and beyond.
I think it's a good place to end.
Yeah, we'll end it back in the bedroom. So, that kind of, what was I saying even now? I'm going to end the show on like
my foreplay and just being, and
So we kind of, there was this, Nakamoto upgrade and SBTC. And I think we all kind of thought like, there's just going to be like 1 million people.
The finish line,
And that's not even the first step. We're still kind of really at the bottom of the mountain, you know. And Munib, I think what really, to me, I've been thinking about a lot recently is imagine how his mind is working, where for all these years he continued to build, where people were calling it a shitcoin, people were saying it's a scam, and he did it properly from the start. If I'm going to put my money on anybody, it's going to be that person, because no matter what'll happen, he'll keep building for the right future, the future that you and me have been talking about in this show. It's not about, okay, well, this is it, it's meme coin season, let's pivot stacks and like turn it into Solana.
It's sort of like also gives you some reflection on all the amazing, I mean, I don't know why, but the idea of like building the airplane came to me just now. But how many failure, like, years, decades, I just in retrospect, right? Like right now we all drive cars, we fly, like it's almost like a given. We're all jaded by like what is possible and a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
But the trials and tribulations to get there, I don't know whether they were deaths, divorce, like whatever they were, those are all the things that had to happen just for us to be able to like drive a car, And so it's all, and not everybody can take that pressure. Not everybody can play the long game. And maybe that's sort of why we stay together, right? Because we do need each other to sort of say, hey, I'm with you, I see you, like, see you in a year, maybe whether you're that excited or not, like we could still like know that we were here,
Yeah. It's beautiful. I love it. It's a beautiful way to end this. So just a big shout out to the Stacks community, just for being here, through it's, we've ridden quite a wave and been on quite a journey together. So I look forward to a lot more. So Gary, it was amazing having you here. I really loved the conversation today. I hope you guys did. Thank you very much for tuning in. Gary, thanks very much for joining me today. And I am Melanie Carstens. This is Bitcoin and Beyond. Thank you very much to Peace in the background, and to Deorganized Media and Bitcoin Live DB for decentralized broadcasting, for just all the stuff that they do behind the scenes. And yeah, have a great day, have a great evening, and we'll see you again next week.
Awesome.
Bye, Gary.